On the grind for the Batchat 25T, we stumbled across the Batchat 25T AP, and this is one of the best mediums at tier 9 in my opinion, just purely based on the way in which it kind of I use it in my own gameplay playstyle, and it is one of the tanks that probably gets forgotten about the most, and it's one of those tanks that gets glossed over by pretty much everyone that ever comes across it, because ultimately it's a paper medium tank, so you get penned by everyone. And it has a super long reload, which puts people off from using this thing. But when you consider the fact that this tank has a 6-shot autoloader that does 300 damage plus per shell, then you're looking at minimum 1800 damage in total with this vehicle. And it can be one of the nicest tanks to kind of get rewarded in compared to everything else. So that's really where I love using this tank, as well as having fantastic view range, good camo, great mobility, and just the list goes on in terms of how this tank performs. And I've showcased it here on the channel before in terms of it being a very, very solid and usable tank within the game that gets overlooked. But let's actually showcase some more gameplay and showcase why I think that this tank is actually one of the better in the game. You can see here just going for some tracking shots on the object 705, which is something you can do really well with autoloaders. And what I feel like people miss out on so much is that most people, you know, they use an autoloader, they just want the damage, etc, etc. But actually, sometimes the assistance damage that you can get with one of these, because of the fact that you're reloading so quickly that you can retrack opponents, you can lock them down, you can keep them in place, allows you to pick up just crazy amounts of assistance. And that's what I've been really pushing people to kind of go for when you are playing World of Tanks, because the difference between having a, you know, I don't know, a 1000 XP damage, 1000 XP game and having like a 1900 XP game can literally just be the assistance damage that you got in a game. You could have 4000 damage in one game, and you can have 4000 damage in another, but end up with 4000 assistance on top of that, and you earn exponentially more XP in that latter game with the assistance as well. And you can see here, just coming up against one of the most broken French heavy tanks in the game, the Machine, or, you know, basically a French heavy at this point. It is, of course, a mercenary tank, but it's essentially the AMX-50B with a Chieftain turret and a Skoda unnerfed autoloader. So yeah, one of the nicest tanks to remove from the game, since it is so powerful in the game. But of course, when you've got the clip potential of this, you can easily YOLO it, considering that the Machine only has 800 hit points left when we YOLO'd it, and of course we have 1800 clip potential. So these are the sorts of things that you can do, and of course with 1600 hit points that this tank has, then you can trade with a lot of vehicles as well. Now then, we know that the bar is looking over this way, and so I'm hesitant to kind of just YOLO in, which sometimes you can do in this tank, and you've got to be very kind of mindful of when you do decide to do it. But remember, the Batchat 25T AP is a tank that is kind of like a poacher, and much like the Batchat 25T, which we've now picked up as with watching and playing this vehicle, we've been able to kind of grind out the last few 100,000 XP to be able to pick up the Batchat, and with the string theory operation that's going on right now, trying to pick up as many tier 10s as I possibly can. You can see here just getting a nice shell into the BAR. Now he misses by a by a ton, and it leaves us on 4 rounds. Now on 4 rounds, most people in an autoloader, or having fired 2 rounds in an autoloader, would have been probably pretty disappointed, since now you've got to reload, you've got a long reload, etc, and you know you're not going to deal that much damage in those couple of rounds. But considering that, you know, you can fire off a couple rounds in this thing and you still have a really nice clip potential to the point where you can basically outtrade anyone that you come up against, then of course it's super good and super fun to use. Now we are in a bit of a position that I really like going into at this later stage, especially if the enemy team do push up quite aggressively. Now you can see me here just basically waiting for the artillery piece to push forward and for us to actually get some damage on him, since I've got a ton of assistance already and we really want to start racking up some actual damage. And as we do that, we actually pick up the last remaining hit points of the GW100. Now, it's really nice to know that artillery does have hit points now, since you can farm them, and that is really a nice thing to have. But we just keep poking this ridge, spotting up the AMX-50B, the sharpshooter, and of course the BAR, and getting us some more assistance. And as such, we're up to 3,300, which in all senses is a very, very good spotting damage game. And it's certainly, if you were going for marks of excellence, I'm not, but if you were, then this would be a perfect game to have gotten with this tank. And so yeah, it's not bad at all, but you really want to be getting actual damage. And so talking about actual damage, we fully aim at the side of a super conqueror, who then, or a normal conqueror even, who then decides to move. And so we pump him with another one, and then another one, and then he moves forward, and we finish him off with another one. And don't worry, because we've still got 600 alpha that we can deal with in this, and there's a sharpshooter in front of us. And now, granted that the sharpshooter is a little bit painful to actually pen, we actually hit the cupola, because it is a chieftain turret, by the way, yeah, we still don't even manage to deal damage. But either way, still pick up 3,500 damage and 2,890 well, 3,800 assistance and 2,900 actual damage. Now the sharpshooter, of course, getting a little bit of rush of crap to the brain, decides he's just going to try and YOLO me, and unfortunately he does actually manage to get one shell of damage, but yeah, just because completely wasn't actually worth it for him. But either way, we're now fully reloaded. There is an M50 355 on the enemy team, as well as this AMX-50B. Now the AMX-50B is going to give us a little bit of extra damage, and we hit him twice, bringing our damage total up to 3,500. Got to poke down a little bit since we don't know if that AMX-50B's fired all of his rounds, but either way, now time to aggressively attack the M53. And he's on 370 hit points, which we will gladly remove, and with ease, considering we have such a nice main armament on this tank, and of course a pretty good result, you know, looking pretty even in terms of assistance and actual damage with this tank. Coming top, 1,800 base experience, not a bad game by any stretch of the imagination. We've had higher damage games, we've had higher assistance game, but a nice combined one, and of course picking up the mastery badge. So really, really good game to start off with. Let's jump into the next one right now. This replay is actually the better of the two, and it's a replay that I really enjoy using because it showcases everything that you really need to know about the Batchat 25T AP, and it's because of this that the tank that we're watching is featured on this channel, because, you know, I was just playing it really to get the Batchat 25T, but considering I had so many brilliant games and it was actually a tank that I was consistently able to perform in, that yeah, it made me just really try and push out to you guys that this tank is actually a good one, and that you don't always have to play these super meta tanks that are unbelievably, you know, are showcased on everyone. Everyone knows about the chieftains, the you know, the super conquerors. You're looking at the 277, you know, all of these tanks that are fairly common knowledge in terms of being pretty competitive, and there's tons more that we haven't showcased or talked about there. But you know, there's loads of common tanks that are very, very good, but there are very few occasions where people really showcase things like the Batchat 25 TAP, and that's what I've hopefully been doing on the channel, is that I try and showcase not just your standard, you know, bog standard run-of-the-mill overpowered tanks all of the time. And although there is a case to be said that that does happen quite often, because most of the premium tanks I cover, and most of them are very, very strong, but, you know, there are still a ton of tanks that aren't necessarily as strong, and so, yeah, we're still covering them within the game. But you can see here we've picked up a nice early 940 damage within this, and so I'm just thinking now, you know, try and play it pretty passively at the beginning, because we don't know how the game's going to end up, and I want to make sure I've got hit points in the later stages with a tank like this to be able to then just farm up a ton of damage. Now unfortunately for the enemy team, they've pushed up quite aggressively up into the top position, where you're seeing the standard B, where you're seeing the T28 prototype. Now you can see me aiming for the tracking shot on the standard B, which we do manage to hit, but we only managed to hit it twice. I hit him one more time, and then I'm hoping that we'll be able to hit him again. I decide that I'm not going to go for the blind fire, even though I could have probably gone for it, but instead we decide to then go for the guarantee on the T28, even though we don't even manage to pen him anyway, so it's kind of pointless. But now it's the long reload, you know, 30 seconds is pretty much what you've got to wait in this tank, but it's not like like horribly long. In fact, it's kind of the sweet spot where it allows you in a lot of occasions to relocate, get to a better position, and then you can deal that damage again straight away as soon as you've moved to that position. So a lot of people kind of think, 30 seconds, that's a long time to be waiting in a tank like this. But actually, a lot of the time you are always moving, you're trying to get assistance damage, you're spotting people and that sort of thing. So it's not really that long, and it doesn't feel like it's an eternity, especially considering how much of an impact you can have when you are reloaded. Now the game is appearing to be a loss, 11-13, the enemy team have pushed really hard, we don't seem to have any map control on this side of the map, and it's just generally looking not too great. But at this point I'm thinking, we really need to start getting stuck in, because although I've done 2,500 damage, we've not really had that much of an impact in terms of being able to push out more and more damage and just be a nuisance to the enemy team. Now I know that they've pushed quite hard into our base, so I'm thinking we've just got to give a little bit of cover. Now the enemy charioteer does indeed come out into the open, we hit him once, unfortunately he doesn't get taken out, but now the Type 4 looks like he's pushing out into the open, so one shell into him. Hopefully we can get another one in, which we appear to only manage to bounce, and then we hit him again, and then hopefully a final shell into the Type 4, which we do manage to do, and then it's time to pull back down, avoid taking any more hits, and start dealing with this flank since the enemy team appear to be pushing quite aggressively. Now, my brain, obviously being the potato that I am, decides I'm going to reload I'm going to reload one shell, because yes, what a great idea that would be. And of course that's the problem with having multiple different ammunition types in the game, and of course not paying attention to what the hell is going on, and so we load one shell. So I'm thinking, I can finish off this Astron Rex. Nope, you are an absolute bot in the game and you've actually only loaded one shell. So now we've got a ton of time to be able to think about how much of a misplay that was, and how we've now maybe made the sacrifice of our heavy tank over here potentially viable for the enemy team to take out. Now luckily he does actually manage to remove the Astron Rex's hit points, but yeah, it would have been nice to actually avoid him having to take any damage, and we would have quite easily been able to remove the Astron Rex from the game. Now that doesn't actually happen, so we can't really do anything about it now. It was just a big misplay, and I'm almost debating whether it's worth just firing one ammo type consistently, because that's happened multiple times in multiple different games. Now you can see me here feeling I don't really want to push my luck too much. I've been hit by the 257, so a lot of people in the game always try and rush things when they take a hit, when if you've taken the hit already, there's no point in rushing if it means you're going to miss out on damage that you might get. Now granted, if there's 5 tanks sat around and only one of them's fired at you, then that's the case, you should be moving out of the way. But if you can take the hit, and there is just one tank that's going to have had actually hit you, then it's not too much of a problem. Now I know that that's the batch at 25 TAP on the enemy team, so I'm not hanging around to take another shell there, and instead we reload and try and regroup back with the teammates, since I'm a bit out on a limb here and I don't think I'm going to get any team support, especially if the enemy Batchat decides to YOLO, it's not going to end up very well. So instead, we use the mobility, take a little detour back to our spawn to find out where that Emil 1 is, and of course find out where the enemy medium tank is. Maybe he will have rotated back, I'm not sure at this point, so we're just basically trying to find out where this Emil and the Bog Horror and the other heavy tank is in the game. So we're making our way back there, 4,500 damage done, so a good damage game, but certainly not the highest I've had so far. But yeah, we're pushing back and we do indeed spot someone. So instead of going straight towards them, I'm going to come up onto the hill. The hill will provide me better view range and also allow me to pull back behind the hill if we do kind of mess up or make a mistake or find out that there's more tanks back there than we were anticipating. But either way, the Emil is here. We put the final couple of shells into him and he gives us a little bit more damage. The Bog Horror is of course back there. I was hoping I would just easily pen him in the upper plate since we're angled down into it. Doesn't happen, and so we actually have to aim at the cupola weak point, or alternatively if we were around the side we could have hit him in the side, or if we were on level we could have hit him in the lower plate. Either way, that was the best option, hit him in the top of the turret. The enemy 257 gets spotted. He's obviously a one-shot, so I'm expecting that our team will just remove him from the game, and now it's a case of trying to find out where this Backchat 25T AP is. The UDES on our team actually finishes off the 257, which is good. The UDES indeed has 3 marks, so he's a good player by all standards of measurement, and so yeah, we're hoping that we're basically going to win this game. I'm kind of pinging up there, telling everyone where he actually is, and of course I put good game because we gonna have to throw this pretty hard if we want to lose it, so it's quite easy game to win, and of course having done the amount of damage that we have, I'm pretty happy to end the game right here, even if we didn't manage to get any more damage either way. So now it's time to push. We're just gonna come up to the ridge line, hopefully the Backchat's up here, and we'll be able to get some more damage, and even if we only manage to get one shot off, that'll be fine. It is indeed up here, and he's not even aiming at me, so that's perfect. Doesn't mean I'm going to get taken out, means I'm going to be able to get my damage core / received up even more, and we actually set him on fire, not needing to fire the last shell, and we finish him off, taking all of the damage of the Backchat 25T AP on the enemy team, and of course picking up over 6,000 damage, and of course 1,861 base experience, not that much higher than the previous game. But either way, picking up 26,000 XP just under within this game due to the string theory and on a ×5 win streak. I think I was on it for like 3 or 4 games or something like that, and yeah, coming top of the team, but nonetheless managing to pick up the Backchat 25T, and of course securing another tier 10 vehicle as part of this string theory XP operation. So we're hoping to get a few more, and of course you can see up in the top right, 925,000 free experience that we'll be spending on getting the MAUs. Other than that, I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day, and hopefully it showcased the Backchat 25T AP and how great this tank is. Thank you and goodbye.